On the job for less than a day, the new UN climate chief talks with Clean Skies News about the challenging road ahead. Some worry Gulf oil has made its way to Key West beaches, and Capitol Hill lawmakers give Interior Secretary Salazar a grilling over drilling.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good afternoon, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report. This is the unofficial first day on the job for the new UN climate chief. Today, Christiana Figueres told Clean Skies News she is very optimistic about upcoming negotiations. Figueres is taking over for this man, Evo de Boer, after serving nearly 4 years as executive secretary of the UNFCCC. De Boer resigned to join the private sector. He left amid strong doubts about the viability of the UN negotiating system, one that was often bogged down or stopped altogether during international discussions last year. Today, in her first television interview since her appointment, Figueres said the UN system is not broken, and she said ups and downs in the treaty process are natural.
What we're negotiating here is highly complex. We're not just negotiating a text where we're doing any wordsmithing. We're actually discussing here the future paradigm of development. That is a tall order, and hence countries should approach this with utmost care, with much national and international analysis.
Figueres also talked about the role that major economies will play as global talks go forward, and why the focus of this year's conference in Cancun, Mexico is so different from the focus in Copenhagen last year. Tyler Suter's entire interview with Christiana Figueres is posted for you right here at cleanskies.com. Well, oil continues to spill into the Gulf, and now there's fear that it's reached Florida. The Coast Guard is analyzing 20 tar balls found near Key West. Jim Roulier, senior energy meteorologist at Planet Analytics, tells Clean Skies News it is extremely doubtful the oil is from BP's well. He says satellite images show it's 50 to 100 miles away from the loop current, and says if it hits the current, it would take at least a week to make it to Key West. Scientists from the University of South Florida are forecasting it could reach the Keys by Sunday. So far, most of the estimated 5.5 million gallons in the Gulf of Mexico has remained offshore. BP is now using 1 mile-long tube to capture about 40,000 gallons a day of oil. It's a fraction of what's gushing. The company is working on a plan that would plug the leak with debris, possibly by the end of this week. NOAA announced today it is expanding the area in the Gulf close to fishing. Nearly 46,000 square miles, or about 19% of federal waters, will be shut under the expanded ban. As lawmakers try to figure out what went wrong in the Gulf, Interior Secretary Ken Salazar was in the hot seat on Capitol Hill today. Members of both the Senate Energy and Environment Committees took turns grilling the Interior Secretary on what they see as a lax culture at the Interior's Mineral Management Service, MMS, which regulates offshore drilling. Salazar promised top-to-bottom reform of the agency and the regulations that govern offshore drilling, but was criticized for moving too slowly. And some of the toughest questions: did the agency let the industry regulate itself when it came to plans to combat spills and the design for safety devices like blowout preventers, which failed on the Deepwater Horizon rig?
The conclusion that this is an unregulated industry is not correct. It is a very highly regulated industry. And when you look at our regulatory mechanism here in the United States and compare that to the rest of the world, we have one of the most regulated industries in the world. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement, whether it's with the blowout preventers or other parts of the OCS development. But the fact is that there are significant regulations in place.
Mr. Secretary, the regulations, but they aren't adequate, and my sense is that they aren't being enforced. And certainly, I appreciated your candor with respect to the blowout, preventers, because clearly there were not adequate regulations of blowout preventers. But for MMS to essentially take the industry's position that these accidents, that the prospect of these accidents was just too remote, and people were writing articles that minimized the prospect of these accidents as well. My view is that they shouldn't have made those judgments.
There is a very robust regulatory mechanism in place. We have asked the Congress for additional inspectors, even in the budget that we submitted some time ago. And there will be tremendous lessons to be learned here.
Well, Salazar also denied reports that MMS had approved new oil drilling applications in deep waters of the Gulf since the Deepwater Horizon disaster. But yesterday, the environmental group Center for Biological Diversity filed a lawsuit to halt all offshore permitting, saying the administration was being coy with which permits had actually been halted in the Gulf and without proper environmental review.
The first issue is that the whole system of granting categorical exclusions under the law for all of these permits is completely broken and caused the spill and disaster that we're now seeing. The second and more immediate issue is the fact that even since this blowout on April 20th, the Department of Interior has continued to grant categorical exclusions to exploration plans. We want that to stop immediately.
Commerce Secretary Gary Locke is in China, leading executives from more than 20 American energy companies. The delegation's making stops in Hong Kong, Beijing, and Shanghai to promote clean energy, efficiency, storage, transmission, and distribution. Locke says he's eager to help forge new business partnerships in China for projects like building wind turbines and designing more energy-efficient buildings. A recent Pew study shows China ranks #1 globally for overall clean energy finance and investment for last year, with the U.S. slipping into second place. Of the 178 gigawatts of power generation capacity under construction in China last year, more than 96 gigawatts were for renewable energy. Speaking at an American Chamber of Commerce luncheon in Hong Kong, Locke praised China's commitment.
China has adopted the most aggressive energy efficiency program in the entire world. And China is on track to exceed many of its ambitious renewable energy goals.
But the visit is not without friction. Locke urged Chinese leaders to suspend the implementation of the proposed indigenous innovations policy he says prevents foreign firms from bidding for clean energy contracts in China. Foreign companies' share of China's total wind power equipment market has plummeted from 75% in 2004 to as low as 5% this year. Well, despite the downturn, American Superconductor announced today a $445 million order from Sinovel Wind. That's China's biggest wind turbine maker. Under that deal, the company will start shipping core electrical components for Sinovel's 1.5 megawatt wind turbines early next year. Massey Energy investors re-elected 3 board members today over the objections of shareholders who wanted them ousted. 2 activists were arrested as they disrupted today's shareholder meeting in Richmond. Outside, hundreds of miners and environmentalists rallied to demand accountability for what they call Massey's despicable record of dangerous mine conditions and poor environmental record. Massey's CEO Don Blankenship defended the company's record, telling shareholders the company rejects all accusations that it's indifferent to safety. Well, some of those who lived through a cold, snowy winter here in D.C. may not believe in global warming, but listen to this. The planet's average temperature for April, 58.1 degrees Fahrenheit. This is according to NOAA as the hottest for any April on record, the organization says. In fact, the world's average temperature was the highest on record for the January through April period, 56 degrees. The report notes that Arctic sea ice was below normal for the 11th consecutive April, covering an average 5.7 million square miles. Let's take a look now at some goings-on around the Beltway tomorrow. 8:30, co-chairman of the Florida delegation have a meeting in Cannon. That's about the oil spill in the Gulf. 12:30, the American Businesses for Clean Energy and the We Can Lead campaign have a press conference. They're going to announce the largest ever outpouring of U.S. business support for the climate bill, they say. The House Subcommittee on Energy and Environment will hold a briefing in Rayburn on the BP oil spill and related science and engineering measuring methods. That's the Energy Report. We'll see you again tomorrow with your latest energy news. If you have any suggestions or comments about our programming on Clean Skies News, we'd like to hear from you. You can email us at contact@cleanskies.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook, too. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, good night.